Today, we're joined by Mehar Verma, a private equity intern at Bain Company with prior experience at Goldman Sachs and currently an economics and finance student at Shiv Nadar University. He brings a strong mix of academic insight and real world exposure to high finance, and today he'll break down the fundamentals of private equity. Meher, it's great to have you here with us today, man.
I'm super excited to be here as well, Arav. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to learn from you, man, and I know for a fact so are the listeners. But before we get into what you have to share, I want to listen about you. So let's start from the very beginning. Mostly people say that there's this one specific moment that pulled them towards finance. Was it like that for you as well, or was it more of a gradual pull towards the field?
Whenever someone asks me why I switched into finance, because I had PCM with computer science as my 11th and 12th subjects, I always tell them that my 11th and 12th happened during COVID. And that was the time when I was not really studying I was always chronically online. And that was the time when the crypto markets were seemingly taking off in the US and the whole GameStop fiasco happened. And I was really following that. And I soon started to realize that that is something that's appealing to me more. That's something I'm finding a bit more interesting. Of course, that was a horrible time to get into finance because everything was going crazy and it was not a true picture of how the financial markets really are. But there was one time where I found that, okay, this is a bit more interesting. I should probably get into this. At the end of my 11th, I told my father that I'm not really liking science. I'd like to switch into commerce if that's possible. And he told me to first finish my science till my 12th. Then he'll give me the opportunity to take the call myself. After 12th, I decided to take up the economics and finance course at SNU, and I've been liking every moment of it since. I'm getting to learn a lot about finance, and I'm finding out it's a lot more boring, but it's a lot more interesting in some aspects as well.
Was the shift particularly difficult because all of the other people who were doing finance at Shiv Nadar, I'm sure they studied
Yeah.
commerce in 11th and 12th?
My first finance course at university was financial accounting. So I was like, "What is happening? I'm not understanding what is debit, what is credit, how to write a journal entry, how to balance these statements." I'm so far behind. I remember in my mid-sem, I actually of 40, I think got a 3 or a 4, and that's what was happening for the first semester of my college. But yeah, I eventually pulled out all-nighters. I got a few friends to teach me, and after first year, we all basically got on a level ground again, and
Right.
we moved a bit from accounting into core finance topics.
I still have one more question about your background. I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you also did programming at IIT Madras, one of the most competitive
Yeah,
institutes in the world, while simultaneously
yeah.
juggling this degree at Shiv Nadar. How do you think both of those degrees have helped you land the opportunities that you have landed in the last 3 or so years?
I'd credit most of my Goldman opportunity to this degree I was doing on the side as well. So UGC now allows you to do 2 degrees, and this the one from IIT Madras is an online one. It basically helped me to set myself apart from the other students who were applying, as I did have a PCM with computer science background, and my father was still pushing me to have some coding skills on the side. I took up this degree to basically try to polish myself from an overall aspect, and that's something that I also pitched during my Goldman interview, that I'm someone who's trying a lot of things, not be tied into one stream. It's something the interview was telling me also, that all the interviews that we've had up until now seem to have been very focused, that they want to get into finance, that they want to get into investment banking or into asset and wealth management. Your experience seems all over the place. How do you justify that? I told them that I want to be a holistic individual. I want to have the skills so that I can take up any problem and get to the bottom of it, basically.
Right.
And that's something that they, at the end of the interview, also came back out with, that it's something really good that you're doing, that you're taking a lot of initiative and going out of your comfort zone to do things.
I love that answer, man. You very articulately laid out the answer for us. With that being said, for students who picture finance as something very abstract, can you tell us what a typical day looks like for you at Bain? What does it look like from the start of the day to the moment you close your
Mhm.
laptop and go home?
Bain is a consulting firm. It's not a typical day at an MNC where you'd be designed a few tasks that you have to come in, clock in, and do every day and then leave. It's on a very case by case basis. We come in, we get a case. It could be any case. Say it's a company wanting to restructure their management. Say it could be someone wanting to go into new markets, test out new products, or it could be a P firm wanting to see in this sector what's attractive and if there are any investable companies. So it's on a very case by case basis. You won't know until the day you walk in that what you're staffed on, and what skill sets might be required and how you might be expected to do your work. On some days, it might be some very mundane work, just adding a few things to your Excel. On some days, it might be a very challenging, very hectic, long day that you have to deliver client presentations by that night. So every day is a bit different. Every day you'll walk in and walk out learning something very new. No 2 days are the same. And you just have to walk in with like an attitude that, okay, it might be a long day, it might be a very short day. We don't know.
All of the days can be very variable. They can change for the
Hmm.
most part,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
What do the
No two
hours
days
look
are the
like?
same, yeah. The hours, some days go very late. Yeah, you log in at 10, you might clock out by 10. Some days, when it's a little chiller, you might clock out by say 4 or 5.
Now, something that a lot of people misunderstand is the difference between private equity and venture capital. Because you're working in private equity
Hmm.
and you know the insides, what would you say is fundamentally different between the two? And where do people commonly get the definition of the two or the understanding of the two wrong?
I'm particularly working in the consulting side of private equity, but I could still share some light on this. Venture capital is mostly looking at particular sectors, trying to see if those sectors are attractive, if they're growing, and trying to then find companies in those sectors to invest in. These companies would particularly be from, let's say, pre-seed to say seed A. These might also be companies which are pre-revenue, so companies which are like just starting out. There's just the idea. And then scaling them from 0 to 1. Private equity then comes in a little later. They come in for companies who have had a few years of revenue to show for, and they have assets, and they have a company where they've probably either stopped growing for some time, or they're having some problems growing, or they need some outside perspective to then transition into new markets or such. So that's when private equity players come in. They come in either for a minority stake in the company, or to get into a board position in these companies. Then they advise the board on how to move forward, cut costs, transition into new markets. They come in for a little more mature companies. Venture capital comes in for, they mostly target pre-revenue, pre-seed companies, which are just ideas and wanted to get out into the market. Both firms are pretty similar in that aspect, that they're not trying for all of their players, all of their investments to return massive amounts, but just a few of them.
So you mentioned how private equity mainly targets the companies that are making revenue already. I want
Mhm.
to ask a question related to that. What does a company that solely look good on paper, how is it different from a company that private equity investors actually end up going forward with? How is the
Yeah.
evaluation criteria
Yeah.
formed?
According to me, from what I've seen, firstly, they mostly look forward for, is the company that they're investing, is the market sustainable? Is the market growing? Is there room for the company to grow? Say if it's a very matured market and the company is new and there are already a lot of players in it, then it becomes a little difficult for the venture capital firm also to come in and help the company get a share of the market. The first filter is to see if the market is expanding. Then they come in to see whether their founders are the right fit for the company. There are a lot of times when the founders might not be the correct people to lead the company, so you do a little bit of analysis on whether they have the experience for that as well. Then they do a check on whether there are any competitive moats that the company has, and those are a few of the things. There are, I'm pretty sure, a lot more. They also just check to see if the team that's running that company, how it compares to the others, what percentage are actually in product versus operations and all of that stuff. So it's mostly of a relationship game, and this is I think mostly taken up by a front end people. We here at the research side of stuff don't really get to mingle a lot with this aspect of private equity and venture capital.
Right,
So yeah, but
okay.
this is something I've heard happens in the industry.
One question about this, even though this is not something
Mm.
that you're directly involved in, are most of the
Mm.
companies at this point of time mainly doing AI?
Yeah, I think a lot of venture capital funds right now are targeting companies which are incorporating AI in their workflow systems. So I'll see a lot of reports going online saying that a lot of companies are hiring AI for replacing most of their back end and middle office operation works. And that's where I see a lot more of the new AI companies coming in and optimizing for. And I
Mhm.
think that's a very budding space in the AI venture capital space as well, I think.
Mhm.
So that's something I've been seeing.
This paves the way for another question I have for you. Can you, for us, without naming anything confidential, walk us through a
Mhm.
deal that you've been a part of and explain how it has maybe challenged the way that you think?
Here at Bain, we don't really get to be part of deals as such. We're part of cases, and even in that case, different teams are staffed because it all works on a very tight schedule. The cases would go on for a maximum of 2 to 4 weeks, and different teams are tasked on different aspects of the case. So there have been a few where we've had to say do a lot of secondary research on the different players in that industry, find out how they're different, what they're doing different, how their financials are structured different to our target company, how many acquisitions have they made in the past, and uh, how that's playing into their books. There was this one case where we had to do some workforce management, where we had to look at the competitors' organization chart and see how many people they have in core product versus operations, and see how that's tallying up to the industry, and whether they have a more sleeker team and they have a more efficient team. There was this one case where we had to do a lot of primary research as well. So we had to design surveys, we had to roll those out to various stakeholders in that industry and get primary data from them. These surveys are usually paid. So we pay them money to fill out these surveys, but then through these surveys we get primary data, which you won't find out there in the markets or on the internet. So through that
Mhm.
proprietary information, we then take a lot of insights and then we send those out to clients as well.
Yeah.
So that's what Bain private equity typically works on. That's doing more of commercial due diligence, scoping out the markets, and trying to get information from as many sources as possible. Be that primary research through surveys, be that secondary research, going online, looking at reports, or even through interview calls, speaking to top management in one-on-one interviews, and then getting market data from there, and then uh, and then helping out on the case. So it's
Yeah.
something that's happening. Yeah, not typical life cases as you might want to hear, but
Uh-huh.
just cases and on different workflows and work streams that we work on
Mhm.
here at Bain.
Mhm.
Mm.
The next question I have for you is a little broad. Sometimes
Mhm.
finance students want to specialize in a particular part of finance. You had an internship at Goldman, which was not related to private equity, and you have an internship right
Yeah.
now, which is inside or related to
Mm.
private equity. So I think you're
Mhm.
the right
Mhm.
person to ask this question. When do you think somebody should really be like, oh, this is the part of finance that I want to get into: asset management, investment banking, private equity?
That's something that I'm figuring out for myself right now as well.
Huh.
And one thing I found out is that before actually committing to one career path, you must try out everything that you can get your hands on. So, and the best way to do that is during college through internships. And I understand getting internships is tough. Even I in my first few years wasn't able to get any, and that's when I was leveraging my connections to get my hands on any place I could before even getting into finance. I did a first few internships in data analytics, then I did one at a political research firm. I was just trying to understand where I'm fitting, and if I really want to get into this career or not, whether I should switch back out or if I'm liking something else. The only way to do that is to get your hands on, to intern at a lot of places. If you're not getting internships, then try and build a few projects, get with your professor, see if they're working on some research that you could help out on. That's, I think, the only way you can actually understand what's actually going on in these companies, because on the outside, I'll tell you, it looks a lot more polished than what it actually is on the inside. There are a few tranches to these industries as well. You might get stuck in the back office of an investment bank thinking you landed a front roll offer. You And I've seen a lot of friends also get burnt in these high paced environments as well. So the only way you can actually understand is get experience, build a portfolio. Even if you're not landing internships, get out to your connections and try and get to work someplace. It's the only way I can tell you that you will actually understand where you want to work and if that industry is actually a right place for you. It might sound all glamorous on paper, but that's how they make it out to be. Really need to get in to understand whether it's something that you want to do full time or make your career in.
I have only
Mm.
one last question for you. This is more
Mhm.
reflective. For a university
Mhm.
student who wants to, for example, break into private equity and wants to have a return offer once they
Mm.
graduate, what
Yeah.
is something that they should realistically be focusing on apart from what they're studying at university, and what is something that they should be doing? You can touch on networking,
Um,
maybe projects,
yeah,
things like that.
yeah. Networking projects are obviously the first go through. Once you are actually in that internship and you want to convert that internship full time, networking is first of all the bread and butter in Goldman. Back when I was in Goldman, that was one thing that they used to stress on a lot as well, is that you get to know your colleagues, understand what they're working on, make yourself known at the firm. Because if you're coming back full time, they'd want to work with a person that they can talk to, right? They'd want to sit next to for the next 10 to 12 hours in a day. You can't just be an introvert and not talk to anyone, just sit down, keep your head down and work. That's good as well, but it's more important to put yourself out there. As for in private equity, one thing that we've been told is it's fine to make mistakes at the beginning of your internship, but once you've been told that, okay, this is not right, this is how you should be doing, you should be making a mental note of everything and try not to repeat the same mistake over and over again. It's something that they expect out of you, is that even if you're making a few mistakes in the first few rounds, that's fine, that's okay, but keep up and don't keep making the same mistakes again and again. One more thing that we here at Bain stress on a lot is doing zero defect work, sending out work only after you're 100% sure that all of it is correct and it's done to the best of your capacity. In internships, what I've understood is that they don't expect you to come in and change anything and everything, or make a massive change, or create a huge impact. What they just want is willingness and enthusiasm from your side, that you're out there to learn, and that you are someone who is very coachable also, who's willing to sit back, understand, not speak out, not interject, and just willing to take in as much information as you can and apply that to how are you working there. That's mainly it. They don't expect a lot. They just expect curiosity, enthusiasm, and a drive to learn and understand, and actually show real interest in what work they're doing.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
so
much. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. There's so much that I know I can
it's
take back, and also the listeners. There's so much rooted in every minute of this episode. Thank you, man.
thank you so much, Arif, for having me. It was a real delight. Every minute of it was how I felt about it, and those were some really interesting questions as well. Uh, and yeah, thank you for having me here. Thank you
Thank
so
you, man.
much.
Thank